Greetings, my fellow game devs! Welcome to the channel and welcome to the ORK Framework 3 tutorial series for Unity. Regardless if you are a brand new developer just getting into Unity or an existing developer just looking for ways to expedite your product launch and ways to reduce the overall workload that you have to do, I personally think that this would be a great product for you. But in the meantime, let's jump over to the video and we'll get started with all of the tutorials and the how-tos. And hey folks, before we get started, I just want to let you know that in the comments below there will be links to the tutorial that we're going over as well as any downloads that are used in the video. So we'll jump over to it and we'll get started.
Alrighty folks, welcome back to the ORK 2D RPG framework tutorial series using Unity 6. Um, the last video that we did, we went ahead and we set up our player. The one before that was the initial setup, and then we got the quick start running as well. If you haven't watched those videos, take a look down around. It's going to be here somewhere, probably in the description if you don't know. Might be at the end. We'll get you set up so you can have access to them. But let's move right into this tutorial for today. We are going to set up some music and some scenes. So we're going to get the music going and we're going to connect our game scenes together. We're going to set up some music clips in the editor and we're going to add music and scene connections to the game. So let's jump right in. Hopefully it should be a pretty quick one today. So to start with, let's go ahead and jump into Machinum. And it's thinking about it. There we go. Let's go ahead and jump into the game tab and we're going to scroll down to music. Now you can see we already have the default set up. So what we're going to do is let's just go ahead and adjust these. So let's call this one town. And let's go ahead and enable the loop clip. And let's find the audio clip that we're going to use. And we're going to use the audio clip for village. There we go. Let's add another one. And let's call this one forest. Loop clip. This one is actually going to be 13, mystical. We'll add another one. We'll call this one battle. Again, we want to have the loop set together. Audio clip. This one's going to be revelation. And then we're going to add one more, and we're going to call this one lost. And this one, we're going to enable the loop clip again, and we're going to set number 7, the sad theme. Not all of your audio clips will have to be set to loop. It all depends on what it's for. This is going to be kind of the background music. So let's go ahead and hit save, and you can see we added the town, the forest, the battle, the lost. Hit confirm. Now let's jump into the scene when this is done. Here we go. Let's get this all minimized here. And we're going to add some more ORK objects. So we're going to use the hierarchy over here. We're going to click on the ORK objects. We're going to right click and we're going to go Machinum, Music Player. We haven't covered this yet, but there's also a scene wizard that you can use. Let me click back over here. So if you go back into the Windows folder, you can go under Gaming is Love and get the scene wizard. Now the scene wizard, I like to dock when I have it down here at the when it wants to work for me. I like to dock it down here at the bottom. But in here, you can create an object, you can add components, you can add machines, camera positions, formulas, and starters. So if we want to do a music player, we click on ORK objects, create, and we just start typing music player. There we go. And you can just simply add it. But we're not going to use that for here. We're just going to keep using the hierarchy. So let's click on the music player, and I'm going to go ahead and close that tab so we have more of our inspector. So we want to change the play type from play to fade to. Music clip will be set to town that we just set up. The fade time is 1, that's okay, and the interpolation is set to linear. That's fine. It also does not matter where you place the music player in this scene, just because of how we're setting it up. Now, in some games, if you're setting up the music player, you've got an area where as you get closer to that area, the music starts playing. So that's other settings to learn and play around with. But let's go ahead and add next, and let's add a scene changer. Now that's going to allow us to go from one scene to another. So we're going to right click on the ORK object. We're going to go to Mechanism, and we're going to go to Scene Changer 2D because this is a 2D game. Now, we do need to change the location of this one though. This one is important. So we know that our spawn point over here is minus 18. So let's go a little bit past that. Let's go minus 20 and then minus 1. And we zoom in on this here with the F key. There we go. Now, we've already added the target scene 0 to change to the forest scene. But why isn't it showing? Well, let's go ahead and set it up. The target scene is going to be forest because that's where we want to go to next. The position type, spawn ID, and again, we're going to spawn at 0. We're going to spawn at the spawn point with the ID of 0. Now, with this setup, we'll spawn the player like we said. But why isn't this working properly? You'll see that it's already got a circle collider. It's set up as a trigger. But if you look at it, our spawn point is inside that collider, so we don't want that. Let's remove this component. Let's add instead a box collider 2D. Now you can see it's just around that little scene there. Let's go ahead and enable this as a trigger because we want, when the player walks into it, we want it to trigger. And let's set the size to somewhere around, we'll keep it 1 on the X. It doesn't have to be very wide this way, but we need it to go that way so the player doesn't just walk off the map. So how about 4? That looks good enough. But here's a question. Why do you think that this is set out here instead of right over here? Well, it's because of something that I didn't do at the beginning. And I'll show you. Our ORK object, where the empty game object that we created, how it's not centered, 0, 0. But if you change this now, it's going to change everything. So an easy way to fix that, if you accidentally do this, highlight the items and just pull them out. And you can set it now to 0, 0, 0. And this is the ORK object. It's not going to affect the location of any of these now. You can also just click the little 3 dots here and hit reset. That'll change it to your zeros. Now, you take those items that you drug out and plug them back in. Now you'll notice this changed. So let's fix that. Minus 20, minus 1. That looks a lot better now. Our spawn point though, minus 18, minus 1, and 0. Music player doesn't matter what its location is, but you know what? Just for all intents and purposes, let's keep them at 0. The game starter, that doesn't matter either. Let's keep them at 0. Scene changer's good. Music player's good. Spawn point's good. That's good. Camera borders, are they like they're supposed to be? Let's take a look and see. Did they move at all? Oh, I think they might have moved. Let's zoom in here, and I'm going to show you what these borders are. So you'll notice that there is a box collider here and a box collider here. This is where the player transitions from one scene to another inside of a scene. So here's part of the town and here's another part. So this part won't be visible until they cross over. So let's go ahead and get back over here, get the grid turned back on. Let's go ahead and save our town scene. Let's jump over to the scenes and let's go to the forest scene real quick. Here we go. Now, let's go ahead and create our empty game object. ORK game objects. Now remember, we don't want to keep messing this up, so reset that transition, the transform to 0. So we need to create a spawn point. So let's create a machinum spawn point. And let's go ahead and set this at, we'll go 18 minus 1. And the rotation, let's set to 180. Now the reason we're setting the 180 rotation on the Z is because we want to change the way our player is standing, right? Let's go ahead and right click on our game object. Let's go to Machinum and let's add a music player. We're going to change it and we're actually going to leave this one. We're going to leave it set to play. But let's go down and change our music clip to forest. And then let's create another scene changer. So Machinum, scene changer 2D. And we're going to set this one to 20 and 1. Sorry, minus 1. And again, we're going to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and remove the circle collider, add a box collider, and let's do it again, 1 and 4. Now, let's go ahead and duplicate. And let's change this name here really quick. Let's go to town. And let's go ahead and duplicate it again. And this one we're going to set over here. So this one's going to be minus 20 minus 3.5. Now we have to set up a couple things here, and let's first rename this to deep forest. The reason I'm labeling like this is because we want to make sure to know what's what. Now if you want to clean it up a little more, you can go create empty scene changer, and we can create another one, create empty spawn points. Well, why would we need 2 spawn point or a spawn point empty game object when we only have 1 spawn point? Well, it's because we're going to have more than 1 spawn point. So we have a spawn point here when the player comes from the town scene. We also need to put a spawn point over here when the player comes from the deep forest scene. So let's go ahead and we'll take and first change this. Minimize the box collider. Scene changer. We know that this is going to change to the deep forest. So let's just copy that scene. And to rename it quickly, you can either right click and rename or F2. Once you click it one time, hit F2 and that'll copy the name. So copy that. Go to the deep forest. That's your target scene. And then for the town, we didn't set this up last time. Let's jump over there. Our target scene is going to be the town. Let's go ahead and duplicate our spawn point that we have. And we can rename this from town and from deep forest. So let's go ahead and set the position. So we want that to be minus 20. No, let's do minus 18. Minus 3.5. Now, here's where we can run into some issues. You'll notice From Town has the spawn ID of 0, and Deep Forest has the spawn ID of 0. We need to make sure to change one of these. So we'll go with Deep Forest, and we'll set this to 1. These now have their very own individual setups, so we're good there. But if you remember, when we set the spawn point up in the town scene, the one thing that we also did was, well, we can't edit both of them, so we'll have to do one at a time. Use that Z rotation. There we go. So we have everything set up. The spawn point is there, but we don't have camera borders. Well, how do we do that? You see that we have the empty camera border right here. Add our component, camera border. There we go. Camera border's in. Let's go ahead and save that scene. Let's jump over to the Deep Forest scene. Alright, let's go ahead and get this all put back together here. Create empty, ORK game objects. We know that we're going to create the exact same thing. So Machinum, scene changer, Machinum, spawn point, Machinum, music player. Let's go ahead and make sure we click on the scene changer. Shrink that down real quick. Let's get rid of the Circle Collider 2D and let's add a Box Collider 2D. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and jump that right around here. Let's set the transform to the scene changer to be 20 on the X and 9.5. I don't know if I like that. And here's why. See, we did it again. Oh, I did it again, I should say. So we'll click on the ORK game objects, reset the transform, scene changer. There we go, 20.95. We've got the box collider on there, is set to trigger. And let's set the size to say, oh, let's do 1.4. I like 1.4. That looks good. Let's get our spawn point, and let's set that to 18 on the X and 9.5 on the Y. We're going to use the rotation for the Z. And our music player, let's open that up. Let's change it here, and we're going to set it to forest. And double checking to make sure everything is right. Now, for the music player, you probably want to drop the volume. I'm going to drop mine down to about 0.3. Let's see what we've got here. Let's double check and make sure everything looks right. So we'll call this one to forest, from forest. The to forest, we do need to make sure to change in the scene changer, target scene, forest, but we need to change the spawn ID to 1. From forest, that works, so we're good with that one. The music player is really going to be how you want to have yours set up, right? Do you want it to constantly play? Do you want it to bounce back? These are all different things that you can think of. So let's go ahead and just set them all to fade in. How about we do that? We'll set all this to fade in. So we see that we have the forest set for our target scene. They're going to spawn at 1. We've got the music player set to 0.3. It's going to play the forest clip. They're going to spawn in. We're using the Z rotation, but what do we not do? Camera borders. So we'll add a camera border real quick. There we go. We'll save the scene, and we'll double check the forest scene and make sure everything's set up right. Camera border's good. Let's look at our ORK objects. Music player, let's go ahead and do fade in. There we go. Scene changers, let's open these up real quick. To town. Alright, that looks good. Going to the town, spawns at 0. Let's look at our box collider. Ah, we forgot something. We forgot to turn on the trigger. What about on the deep forest? Did we do the same? We did. Alright, let's jump over to from town. We got the Z set. From forest, we got the Z set. It's got its ID set to 1. Alright, we'll save that. And let's do one final set of scenes. Let's go ahead and do the battle scenes. So let's do battle forest. Let's go ahead and create an empty ORK game objects. We'll reset the transform. Let's go ahead and do a machinum. Spawn point. Here we go. We can leave this to 0. And we're not going to have to name this because this is strictly just a battle scene. Okay. So we've got that set, so let's go ahead and hit save. And let's do the same thing for Battle Deep Forest. Create empty. ORK game objects. So that's spawned at 0, so we're good. So we'll go machinum. Spawn point. Okay. So we have this all set now. And you know what? Just to be on the safe side, let's go ahead and set the Z rotation for these as well. Sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it is, but just in case, we'll have that set. Lastly, let's go to the start menu. Here we go. Now the start menu, as you can see, is completely blank. That is fine. So let's create an empty. ORK game objects. Transform is set to 0. Let's go ahead and go under ORK framework. ORK game starter. Make sure we got start game checked. Let's add a, oh, actually, you know what? Because of how we're going to set this up, let's turn start game off. We'll keep the default settings for now because we're actually going to have the project asset already selected. So let's go ahead and back on here. We're going to right click. We're going to go to Machinum and we're going to go with another music player. We're going to do play type, stop. We're going to save the scene changes. We're going to open the town, forest, or deep forest scene and hit play. So let's go to town. Let's hit play. So right out the gate, you can hear that music is extremely loud. So let's go ahead and jump in here before we do any more testing. Let's go to our music player and let's drop this down to a 0.3. That might still be too loud, but we'll edit this for the forest as well. There we go. So now let's go ahead and jump back into town and hit play. Might be a lot better now. Significantly better. So we walk around. That's good. We've now got it set to where we can move around here. And we know where that other scene's at over here, so let's make sure we go over there. Now, something I wanted to point out. Something I did want to point out here. When we go from the forest scene, we'll jump over here, to the deep forest, I want you to pay attention to the placement of the character. Ah, but why didn't that work? It didn't load anything in here. How come? Because we don't have a start object in here. So right click, ORK framework, ORK game starter. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Remove that component. Delete that out real quick. Yeah. Oh, and my UI is being all kinds of buggy. But that's okay. We don't need to have anything special set with this. The default settings are fine. So now if we hit play, does it do anything? We hear the music, but no player. It's because start game's not checked. So if we hit start game here, and this is, we're never going to start in this scene, but I wanted you to see this, so that's why I've got this on and enabled. There's our player. He spawned in. All right, so this is the spot that I wanted you guys to pay attention to. When we transition over, look at the focus on the player's the way he's looking now compared to when we change over scenes. You can see that he's now facing to the right. The reason for that is because we did not change the rotation of the player. So let's fix that really fast. Deep forest. I'm not going to save that. I'm going to go to the spawn point here, and we need to set the rotation to 180 because we want the player facing that way. So now, if we go to town, and that looks good, just like it's supposed to. That's how we want it to look. So now let's go back the other way. Ah, you see how he's flipped around? What about if we go back into town? You'll see how he's faced properly, right? So the reason for that, and the reason why I'm showing you this, is so you can see that there are things that sometimes are forgotten, and they're easy to fix. So this one does not need the 180 rotation. Or does it? Do we remember what the player did? Was he facing the right direction? Or was he not facing the right direction in the town? Do you remember? He was not facing the right direction in town. So we can set it up again and we test it again. So he walks over, looks good. Now he's backwards. Oh no! Those are all tweaks that you have to do and you have to test. So we can set that to 0 and we can jump to the forest scene because we know coming from this forest scene, he was backwards. So we save it and test it one final time and we'll leave you with that. Helps if you're on the right scene to test it too. There we go. He faces the right way. He faces the right way. And he faces the right way. So there we go. That's how you're going to simply set up a scene. Shows how to connect the scenes from one scene to another, adding music players, and adjusting your spawn points to make the player face the direction that you want them to face. If we were to put a spawn point up here for the player to go up, instead of setting it to 180, we can set it to 90. But yeah, folks, we're going to leave it there. As always, thank you so much for hanging out, watching the videos. If you haven't done so, please hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you get advised when these videos come out. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me. I've got my Discord, my social medias, or here directly in this video. Until next time, we will catch you coding somewhere. Have a great night, y'all. Happy coding.
Thanks for checking out this video for the ORK Framework tutorial series. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to throw a question down in that comment box, or you can hop into any of the live streams and catch me live and ask me live while I'm there. If this video did help you out in any way, shape, fashion, or form, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That being said, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Good luck on all of your future projects. And until next time, happy developing.